to share it now. Oh, I'm not on camera. That's important, right?
That's so important.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share as well. So did you see it come up yet on yours?
Not yet.
Okay, I just saw it for mine. Okay. And then you should be able to see do you see the share button?
I don't even see. I'm going to my notifications too to see.
Okay, are you on my business page, Alicia Perkins LCSW? You have to go to that, not my personal page. So that might be the issue. Hello, for those of you who are joining. We would get started shortly. We're just trying to get this out to everyone. Do you see it now?
Almost. Technology.
Right.
You wouldn't believe that I am a millennial.
Oh, I'll be struggling.
You not
I
believe
am struggling when it comes to this. Hello. For those who have joined, put your name in the chat so I know who you're. Hey, Jenny. Hey, boo. Hi, Miss Philpott. All right.
I did it.
You got it? Okay, perfect.
Look at me doing big things.
All right, so when you get on, for the people in the audience as well, please share to your page, because the whole point of S.H.E.R.O Spotlight is to help as many people as possible. So without you sharing, people won't know about it. So definitely share to your page as well, so people can join this live. Sharing. And so while we're waiting for others to continue joining, I want to share with those of you who don't know what S.H.E.R.O Spotlight is. I'm going to share that with you. My name is Alicia Perkins, and I am a licensed clinical social worker, which is another nice name for a therapist. And I've been a licensed clinical social worker for over 20 years. And I decided to do a Saturday Seed back when COVID started, I think maybe like March or either June of 2020. I started doing a Saturday Seed because, of course, that was a great need for mental health workers to help people, because a lot of people are going through things. And so I know that everybody can't afford therapy. So I just started doing these little brief videos for Saturday Seeds, and people really enjoyed it. But then God gave me this other vision about S.H.E.R.O Spotlight, because when I was going through my darkest moment dealing with depression, I used this acronym that I created from the word S.H.E.R.O. Of course, you all know S.H.E.R.O is a female hero, but I created this acronym. S is sacrificing for my child. H is healing from my past hurts. E is evolving into what God wants me to be. R is revealing my truth, and O is obtaining my goals and happiness. When I did all those things, that just helped me get over that. And the reason I have the S.H.E.R.O Spotlight, because every month I spotlight or highlight a mother that exemplifies that acronym. They talk about their adversities or the tragedies or the traumas they've went through, but how they have overcome, or how they're currently still dealing with it or working on it to a higher level of success. And because when I was going through my moment of depression, I felt like I was alone. That's crazy, right? Because I'm a therapist. But I didn't really want to reach out for therapy either, because the whole stigma. And I know that I work in that field, but I thought I could handle it on my own. But I felt alone. And I know a lot of people deal with depression. But in my mind, I felt that I was alone. And so again, the purpose of S.H.E.R.O Spotlight is for these females to share their story and let other people who may be walking through the same thing or dealing with the same thing, that they're not alone and that you can overcome this. And so Adè has a beautiful story. I have her here with me today. I'm so happy to have Adè Carrena with me today, and she's going to share her story. She exemplifies S.H.E.R.O to the fullest now. And another thing I like about Adè, although I haven't had her food yet, but I'm going to, she is a chef, and we are here because I love food. I'm a foodie. Yes. I'm just excited to hear her talk about what she has going on with her business. And that's the other cool thing about S.H.E.R.O Spotlight. I did not know this when I started it, and this was not my plan, but every single female I have interviewed are business owners. And so that is even more amazing. And so we're just going to jump right into it. So Adè, tell us about yourself and where are you from?
Yes, I am from Benin, which is a country almost no one's ever heard of, but it is a very beautiful, tiny country on the west coast of Africa. So if you can place Nigeria, we're right to the left of that. And I came to this country when I was about 10 years old. So I mean, I guess I grew up in both places.
Got
Mhm.
it, got it. And
And
you're
I have,
also a mom.
yes, I am a mother. I have an 8-year-old daughter who
Uh-huh.
keeps me on my toes for sure.
Right.
She's 8 going on 30 maybe.
She sounds like mine. They be trying to tell us how to live. I'm like, who's
Yeah,
the parent here? I get confused sometimes.
exactly.
And I also want to
Yeah.
shout out my friend or our mutual friend, Jenny, because Jenny told me a while back, she was like, you have got to meet Adè. She said, I think she'll be perfect for your S.H.E.R.O spotlight. And she kept telling me that every time I would see her. And then finally one day in my Facebook Messenger, Jenny had all three of us in the chat. She was like, Alicia meet Adè, Adè meet Alicia. And so here we are and we connected. And we have been, rocking ever since. So I do appreciate her again being on today. And thanks and shout out to Jenny for making that connection because that really means a lot. So tell us about your childhood.
Yeah. Well, I think I like to compartmentalize my childhood a bit because
Right.
I lived two very different experiences.
Right.
And so, from the time I was born till I was about 10, I lived in Benin with my parents. And I remember that being just, like a normal childhood for me.
Right.
Till one day, I think I was in 5th grade, I came home from school and they were like, you're going to America. And about a month later, I was on a plane to America. And I came here and was faced with a whole different perspective or reality rather, than what most of us think America is or is meant to be.
Right. So
Yeah.
not only were you told that you were going to America, but you also were being adopted.
Ah, yes. I think so for us, when we are at home, we just think there's this excitement about coming here to America.
Mhm.
There's a gross misconception actually about what life is like here, or as if like maybe we don't have struggles either here,
Mhm.
and that all the opportunities would just present themselves to you here and it would just be a lot easier. But that's not the reality of it. And a lot through adoption, I came here and I was raised by a Puerto Rican woman in the suburbs of Trumbull, Connecticut, which is
Wow.
a whole different thing in itself,
Right.
a lot of eclectic culture, but also then coming into the African American experience.
Right. Right. So what emotions or feelings did you experience being adopted? And how did you cope? Because again, you did know your family. Some
Yeah.
children are adopted when they're infants, but you
Yeah.
knew your family. And it was kind of like you were ripped away from your family and your culture that you knew. So
Yeah.
what
It's really
feelings and
weird.
emotions did you deal with?
Sure. In the beginning, again, there was this excitement. Literally, I think I was excited until the moment I got on the plane and was like, oh, okay, well, when do I see my parents again? Because there was no conversation about that. There was no, here's how this is going to work. There wasn't like, oh, you will talk to you guys, we'll talk to you however many times we do, or we'll see you again. There wasn't that until there was this realization that potentially that would never happen again. And it was just this huge wave of almost sadness and, scared of what is coming next. And then they went to a little bit of excitement again because I'm coming to a new place. And maybe I just always had that personality of like wanting to learn new cultures. But then got here and realized, oh, wait, I don't speak this language. How do I communicate with people? Or wait, I don't know these people. And you're thrown into school and you just kind of have to figure it out.
Right.
So there was a lot of there was a lot of fear, a lot of confusion as well. Not understanding the reasoning behind being adopted. because
Right.
I felt like I had like a great life. Like I had my mom, my dad, my siblings.
Right.
I didn't think we were lacking, which is almost the beauty of like being an African child.
Hmm.
You're not thinking you are lacking anything. You're just content in
Right.
your situation.
And when you say that too, there's a difference, and I think people don't really understand the huge culture difference there is between Africans and African Americans. And so can you touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think as I grew up and I kind of fell in love with what I do and wanting to understand more about us as people, in traveling back home and rebuilding connections with Africans from home, and while also, knowing and having like a huge African community here
Right.
surrounding, I realized that there was, a huge disconnection between us in the
Mhm.
sense that Africans may not understand the kind of effects that like slavery has actually had on the diaspora or African Americans. And then on the other side of the spectrum, African Americans don't have a full grasp of what colonialism has done to us in Africa. So there's so many discussions we're not having amongst each other that could spark a lot of healing between us. There's like
Right.
a big wall, a big barrier between us of just misconceptions and misunderstandings.
Right. So how did you find your identity? Speaking of that, because again, you're being in the world because you have the color Black, they thinking you're Black and you're African American, but you're not, and you're being in the United States. So how did you find your identity?
So funny enough, I consider myself to be just as African as I am African American, as I am maybe even Puerto Rican. Uh,
Mm,
I come to a place where all three of these things meet, and I see the parallel between them. And food has been a huge way for me to do that.
mhm.
I never forget when I saw my abuela, my adopted mother's mother, making what Puerto Ricans call piñón, which is like a plantain lasagna. And
Mhm.
for me, I was like, I've never seen plantain used like this before.
Right.
And it kind of sparked this thought in me that, well, how did it get? I remember seeing plantains in Benin. How did that get here
Mhm.
into this culture? And then looking at like being in the South and looking at a lot of like Geechee culture or Cajun culture or Creole culture and seeing similarities in the foods from like hopping john to red rice to gumbo and saying, wait, we eat the same thing
Right.
at home. So clearly there's like an intersection between all of these things. So I feel myself to be all of these things because I've experienced all of them. So
Right.
I don't remove myself from it. What I try to do is to respect the differences
Mm.
and understand the privilege that I have in saying that I come from this place in Africa, and oh, my grandmother from this part of me is Puerto Rican, or my friends, or I grew up in this African American community. So
Right.
understanding my privilege is important in being able to have these kinds of conversations.
Right. I love that, to respect the differences. One thing about me, I've always loved other cultures, and traveling. And also when I worked in social work, of course, I work with different people from different cultures. And that's one thing in my profession, we always talk about being culturally competent, because how can you really help someone if you don't understand where they come from?
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I teach to mental health professionals when I do courses and stuff like that, because again, we can't go in with these stereotypes and these biases. And I have never met a client who didn't want to tell me about their culture. Because when I say, okay, tell me about your culture, where you from? They will tell me everything. And that's how I gain knowledge, though. I love
Mhm.
going to festivals. I go to international festivals and stuff like that. Again, like I said, I'm a foodie, so I like trying different foods. But it has helped me, like I said, gain a lot of knowledge. And I think it's important that we as a community stop being in the box. We start having these stereotypes, these biases based off things we might see on TV, or maybe the experience with maybe one person. But that doesn't say that's the whole,
Mhm.
dynamic of that whole,
Yeah.
race. So it's
Yeah.
important that we step outside the box, educate yourself. And now, luckily, we have computers, we have Google. Back in the day, we didn't have all this great stuff. You can, I mean, I look up stuff, you know,
And
because again,
social
right.
media has played such a huge role. And I think when I think specifically about West Africa, most of the times when you ask people, have you been to West Africa? They'll be like, no, but I've been to Kenya. I'm like, that's not West Africa.
West Africa.
I've been to Morocco. That's also not West Africa.
Right.
That is definitely not West Africa. Or I've been to South Africa, and I'm like, none of these places are West Africa. However, I think like in today's world, you know, access to social media and technology has been, to me, a propeller in people being able to actually see what West Africa looks like. You can go on Instagram now and find a page that can show you, you know, what the culture of Ghana is, or the culture of Togo, or the culture of Benin, the culture of Senegal. So I think one of the great things that social media has done is allowed us to tap into.
Right, for sure. And so when Adè shared her story with me, one of the things that stood out, and again, for those who have just been joining in, is that Adè was sent to America. She is from West Africa. She was sent to America and was adopted. So she was pretty much taken away from her home, and her mother is the one who put her up for adoption, obviously. But so when I hear your story, and this is what I want you to share with everyone, is talk about how you did reconnect with your biological mom. How did that happen? And how did that play into you finding your identity as well?
Yeah, for sure. So I was very upset for a really long time, just because I did not understand why this decision was made. And when I was 23, my mother, one of my older sisters, who was also adopted and lived in France, had come to the United States. And she is actually the one who kind of started this. She told our mother, it's time for you to meet your grandchildren, because she also had children. Wow. And so my mother came here in September, I want to say, of 2015, excuse me. And we sat down, kind of just like you and I are doing right now, across from one another. And she had to actually, you know, hear the reality of what my experience was as an adopted child, which I imagine might have been hard for her. And I had to remove the title of mother, because that comes with expectations, so that I can meet her where she was and really understand her why, without thinking, oh, well, a mother should be doing this or should have done that. Like, you should have done all these things. Because as a mother myself, I was like, I'm just trying to figure this out. I had my daughter, I was 22 when I had my daughter. I was a baby myself. And I just knew that some parts of it were a struggle, and I was doing the best that I could. And I was making the best decisions that I thought I was making for my daughter. And I put myself in her shoes, and I imagined that she was doing the exact same thing, making the best decision that she thought was best for me at that time, with the information that she had. And being able to remove those expectations really allowed me to look at the situation with some grace, and hear her and reach out to her, you know, and take that first step toward her. So that was really, really good for our relationship, was to be able to have that candid conversation. It was hard, but then also imagining what it must have felt like for her, not knowing what, like, if her child was okay, like, ate today, you know, what is she doing? Because I look at my daughter and I cannot imagine exactly what being apart from her would be like. And so just being able to have that conversation with her, and really being open to listen, and not coming from a judgmental place, is how it started for us. And after doing that, we, you know, just kind of, it wasn't perfect at all still. Like, there was still a huge distance between us. We had to build some kind of trust and understanding of one another, had to kind of understand our personalities. And as mothers, I think I felt that we had more in common at that point now than we would have obviously when I was 10. And so
Right.
that's a great place for us to start from.
Right.
Motherhood.
Absolutely. And if you're comfortable, do you mind sharing with everyone what was her reasoning? Because I know people probably wondering what was her reason? What would be the good
Yeah,
reason? You
I
know?
mean, yes, I don't mind sharing. A lot of it had to do with the fact that, you know, you think that there's better opportunities for your children out in the Western world, which is, again, a huge myth.
Mhm.
It's a misconception because you come here, you still have to work very hard as a Black and brown person in America to achieve the goals that you are wanting to achieve. And so for her, it was about, for both her and my father has passed away, so we can't talk to him, but collectively, it was about just having the thought that there's a better opportunity for their children was enough to be able to make that sacrifice in hopes that everything would work out. And also, I think that they just never would have imagined that it wouldn't have been a good thing. You know, I don't think they were given all the information. I don't think they knew really what the reality would have been for me. Mhm. But it's the same story for a lot of people. You know, we think that the answers are somewhere else when actually African problems require African solutions. So.
Right. I like that. But yeah, so that's really tough. And sometimes, even when I work with clients and they're having, trouble forgiving someone, especially if they've had issues in their childhood, I always ask, let's look at your parents' childhood, or did your parents have the tools? It's not, making excuses for them, but if they didn't have the tools or the knowledge, how much blame are you going to, keep holding on to them about, you know what I'm saying? Or you're going to let that go or forgive and you move forward, or you're going to keep holding on to that because sometimes they don't have the tools. And now it's like, once they're educated, what do they do with the tools now? They're trying to amend or trying to be better and things like that. So you have to look at that full picture. And a lot of times when I say that, they do think, and they be like, well, yeah, their parents treated them the same way, or I don't think she did have the tools. Like you were saying, they were doing the best they thought they could do, or this was a better opportunity, not knowing all the information. So that kind of helps with the forgiveness piece, thinking that, okay, they didn't have everything in place to make a really good or informed decision.
Yeah.
And so with your forgiving, I know you said it's been a road to forgiveness.
Yes.
But with you forgiving, people say, and I think people say you don't forget though when you forgive. Is that a true statement? And if so, why? Or if not, why not?
That's an interesting statement. Because I've been hurt. And I think for me personally, it depends on who it is, because I no longer have a relationship with my adoptive parents. I've most certainly have forgiven, but I have not forgotten. So I can say that it holds true in certain situations. With my mother, I'm going in there fully open. Like there's no roadblocks here between she and I. And I think that forgetting part is about maybe how the other person responds. The reason why I say with my adoptive parents, I haven't forgotten. It's not affecting me. It's not bothering me. I'm totally fine. But it's the fact that there's no ownership. And my mother has taken ownership of what has happened. She's taken ownership of her part. She is fully open to communicating with me about my thoughts, my experience, how I feel. And it's a two-way street between us. And I think a lot of time when people say forgiveness is for you, sure, there's some truth to that. Forgiveness is for you. You don't want to be sitting here being miserable all the time. But sometimes it's like realistically, realistically, it's difficult. to
Right.
just be able to say, okay, I forgive you, without hearing it from that without hearing it from that person, or really hearing, getting that person to understand how they've affected you.
Mhm.
Then you go into all the different ways people accept forgiveness, right?
Right.
The way someone says I'm sorry to me might just be all I need, or I might need them to actually physically do something. So I think it really, really depends on the person, and it's tough to tell them just forgive and forget, because there just might be a way that they receive it that hasn't been met.
Right. Right.
So that's a difficult statement. Rather, I would say, forgive and continue to work on yourself to fill your heart. I think, like, I don't forget what's happened to me in my childhood, but it most certainly doesn't affect me anymore. It holds no power over me, but I most definitely remember it.
Right. Forgiveness is definitely a healing process. And I think too, people have trouble forgiving themselves first, because sometimes they think things are their fault. And again, we're so easy, and I've said this before, we easily forgive others, but not necessarily ourselves. We're hard on ourselves. And so I think that's part of the equation as well. And then, like you said, I feel like people do have to be receptive, but I tell clients as well, is like, you can only be responsible for you. So when you're going into this, telling this person how you're feeling, the response may not be what you want, but you have to be okay with that. And that's where the part comes in, like you were saying, forgiveness is somewhat about you as well. But you also say it has to be that other person too, but you have to go in with that mindset, knowing the response may not be, oh, I remember, I'm so sorry. It may not be that. And when it's not that, how are you going to deal with that? And that's something for everyone to think about. If you go to someone who's wronged you and you tell them how you feel, and if it's not the response you want, how are you going to deal with that? After the fact. And I always tell my clients to think about that before you even approach that situation, because if that's going to make you more, angrier or things like that, then you're not ready.
Yeah.
You're not ready.
For sure. Meeting people where they are is important, and controlling your own emotions.
Right.
To me, at the end of the day, you have to learn how to control yourself. You can't force anybody to do anything that they don't want to do. So just like that, you have to be willing to accept whatever happens, which is why it's about you.
Right, exactly. And I know too, you had mentioned that therapy, you had mentioned it to me, that therapy did help you as well. And I'm always the advocate of therapy. And so if you want to share with the people how that helped you to kind of forgive.
Well, when you come from trauma, I think you learn to just box yourself, and you're not always aware of how it's affected you and how it plays out in the things that you do. And so being able, because I actually thought I was okay, to be honest. I thought I was okay. I was living my life very much closed up to other people, until I had a friend that was like, why you don't share anything? I just sit here and tell you all about me all day long and you don't share anything. I'm like, I thought I was sharing, but there's a difference. And so when I started therapy, I realized, like, oh, there's a lot of stuff that I kind of buried and there to be addressed. And when I started doing that, I kind of just faced myself. There were some things that I couldn't even say out loud before, that therapy I was able to accept and acknowledge and work through. So it's been a really beautiful journey of being self-aware, not just like in a bad way, but just self-aware of how I'm feeling and how things have affected me and how I became the person that I am. And it's given me the tools to just, continue to be introspective, and just think about myself and my thoughts and how I'm feeling and how things affect me, and then inherently how they affect my child.
Right, that's key. That's key, because you have to make moves and make decisions for the next generation, for your seeds. And that's key too, because sometimes, again, we harbor those feelings and those type of things. And it's like, that impacts your children. If you believe that or not, it really does, by some of your actions And then next thing you know, your children pick up on that. So it is important that you do heal from those past hurts. And that's part of my S.H.E.R.O. And that's why I said that I know that because I've been through it myself, because that is key. And then another thing too, when it comes to forgiveness and just working on yourself, you cannot hold a person accountable for something if you have not told them how you feel. And that's another thing I always tell people. They'll tell me all these, such and such did this to me, and they'll go on, but did you tell them how that made you feel? No. So they may not know. It's perception is everything. They may think everything is cool, but until you tell them how you feel, then once you tell them how you feel and they continue on doing the same thing or whatever, now you can hold them accountable. But if they don't know, people can't read minds.
Communication.
So that's important. Right.
Yeah, communication.
Yes. And another thing that, so now we're going to kind of jump into you as a business owner.
Yeah.
And as you talked a little bit earlier about, just exchanging the culture gap through food. And I love that because you said that statement to me when we first met, and then you kind of talked about it a few minutes ago about, because of course we all love to eat. Everybody has to eat anyway to survive. And that's a way to bring cultures together. So I want you to talk about why you became a chef and how long ago you became a chef.
Yeah. So I actually hated cooking as a child because it was a chore. It was nothing. I never envisioned that I would be a chef feeding anybody anything to eat. I just knew I hated it. I did not want to do it. There was a lot of trauma that was tied to it. Until I started working at this farm to table restaurant called Heirloom at the study at Yale, which was at the heart of Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut. And I saw these people coming to eat and paying this price. I said, so people are coming here and to do this on purpose? And that's when it made me think that, okay, so people, you're not just eating because you're hungry. There's something else here that's like pulling you to this thing. And then I realized that food was actually like a tool. It was more than something to be consumed, and that you could actually be intentional with it and how you want people to feel and what you're trying to say to people. And I was like, I feel like I do got a little something to say. So this might be a way to explore that. So I kind of started working in there, and I fell in love with the artistry of food and how powerful it could be. And that's how that happened when I was actually 19 years old. And then life happened. I got pregnant, I went into banking for some time, realized I did not like that. Then was pulled back to what I was passionate about, which was food. And really what it is about bridging the cultural gap between us, and reintroducing West African food, or reimagining it, to kind of break some of those barriers and some of those myths that people have about West African food, and also creating safe spaces for us to have like intentional and important necessary conversations that could spark healing across the diaspora. And that's really what I feel food can do for all of us.
Absolutely. And like I said, I love to try food from different cultures, and I've never tried yours yet. So I want you to describe your cooking style or your dishes in 3 words.
My cooking style is definitely intentional.
Okay.
There's definitely a reason why every bit of what you have in front of you, it's there. It's about telling a story. So it's storytelling, and it's very much tied to identity for me.
Right.
And culture.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I want you we have a lot of people on, so put in the chat if you love to eat. And if you've tried West African food, put that in the chat.
That's fun. I want to know who tried West African.
Yes. I know my daughter's uncle, he was on here, he's West African. So I've tried West African food. So I want you to now share your businesses with everyone, because you have 2 businesses and you have things in the works too. So share with the people so they can follow you, so they'll know what your next events are too, especially if you're in the Raleigh-Durham area, that's where she's based. So share your information with us.
Yes. So the first business that I started with is called Dounou Cuisine. And what I did with that or do with that is host pop-up dinners, like farm to table dinners, that again are very intentional, that are telling the story of like Black foodways and how some of the things that we eat today could be inspired or influenced by West African food, and just stories of like untold stories of Black folks as well. And so I do that through a series of farm to table dinners, and we source all of our ingredients from Black farmers because it's important to support one another. I actually basically lost that business during COVID, but we're making it come back because I have a food truck and we have some events coming up now.
Yes.
So our food truck is just about ready. We got our permit a couple weeks ago, and now we have to go through inspection. And I don't know if any of y'all have had to do this, but it is a process.
Yeah, I've heard.
Sometimes very frustrating, a very frustrating one at that. And so that's what we have going on with Dounou Cuisine. And then in the midst of COVID, when as a chef, like none of us were doing anything, we really suffered. It really affected the hospitality field. I got this bright idea that I wanted to start a packaged food line. And not that starting a packaged food line was enough, I thought that I should travel back home to Benin and source my ingredients from the women in the work with the women entrepreneurs and smallholder farmers to source our ingredients, to create a socioeconomic exchange and connect them to global markets. And so we launched about 6 months ago, and we're growing, and we're in a couple of stores, we're on Amazon, through our website, and so that's some of the things that I have going on, just really using food to make impacts in people's lives.
Absolutely love that. And so now I want you to share how you're giving back to your community. Like you said, you went back, and what are you doing in your community to help women?
Oh, yeah. Well, everything that I do is centered around, seriously, it's centered around women. So in Benin, for example, what we're doing there is not only are we sourcing our ingredients for women, but we're looking to build a facility out in Benin where we can actually produce our spices out of, which would potentially create more work for the women there. And then on this side of the world, because our spices are actually imported and our blends are made here, we'd like to also create a facility here that would kind of train women who are single mothers, women who, are just starting over, no matter what your life was before, you're kind of coming back and like, let's try again, and just support you with everything that you need, and for it to be a program that is transitional, that you are just transitioning and you're on to better things. So whether that's making spices with us, whether that's cooking with us, whether that's learning tools, whatever resources you need.
Right.
It's what we want to provide you with. Oh, and on the other side, in Benin, we're trying to advocate for young women who would have access to education, because, that's why my parents sent me here. And funny enough, that didn't work out for me. I have a college degree, but I think I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. But to just give them access to that education, so we're not ripping families apart because they don't have access to education, or they think that the education is better elsewhere. But it's just shifting that mindset of valuing what we have ourselves. And if school is not what they're looking for and they're wanting to build businesses of their own, how do we support them and provide them the resources to do that? Because we come from that kind of society in West Africa, where it's really there's so many, entrepreneurship is like embedded in where we live, so those are some of the things that we're doing.
I love that. So make sure you support her businesses. That is so amazing. And people want to know your website.
Yes.
You put it in the Facebook chat. If you can type it in there. And they want to know how to get your spices.
Yes.
And then as you're doing that, So while you were waiting for her to type that in, does anyone have any questions for Adè right now? Because this is a open forum and I like to engage with the audience. Anyone have any questions? See a lot of hearts out here, a lot of likes. But definitely support her business. And for those of you who are on, hey, we're gonna be giving some giveaways later on. We're almost done with the live, so make sure you stay on to the end. And so Adè, I want you to share with the people while you're typing that up, why is community important to you?
Well, gosh, up until coming here, I lived that way. I don't remember, even today when I go home with my mother, my mother does not step in the kitchen without the women of the community coming into that kitchen to cook with her. Everything we do is centered around community. Like that is what the African woman does, like invests in their community, strengthens their community, and supports their community. And that's what's been embedded in me. That's what I watched when I was home. And that's what I see when I've gone back home. And it's really important because we can't be in this world alone, right. Like we are made to be with people and be in community, and in community we flourish.
Right, exactly.
So that's really important to me. And there was a point in time in my life where I was like, no, I was a loner. But I was just thinking the other day, looking at the people who come in and out of my house, because I always said, like, I want my home to be the home that people just show up at. I know that's weird. And most people are like, don't come to my house before calling me. You better let me know if you
right, exactly.
But I actually am not like that at all.
Interesting.
I love having a house full of people. I love feeding people. I love hosting people. I just want, there's something about sharing a meal with people. And in my culture, we have a word or a saying that it says wami dunu, and that's a phone word. And that translates to like, come share a meal with me. And it's not pleasantries. It's really not pleasantries. It's really a way of life for us. So when you come into my home and you see me, for example, I'm eating or something, I want you to come sit and eat from that bowl of food with me. So it's it's embedded in us, is rooted in me. And that has been the basis of like any of my businesses.
Wow, I love that. Because I feel like in America, I feel like a lot of people are just, well, we're more so now, the community is just about ourselves. And I remember growing up where it was more community. Everybody looked after everyone. If you was misbehaving, and I don't care if you was, the neighbor would get on you and no one would take offense to that. Everybody looked out for everyone. And now it's no longer like that. So to hear about that culture just like warms my heart. Like, oh my God, I want to go there.
Yeah. Come. I'm going in February. You just let me know if you.
Yes, I'm trying to go. Who else trying to go a day? She can just set up a tour.
Yes, you know what? I'm going to. Don't worry. I'm going to, because there's so much beauty there. And again, I think there's just such a misconception, and people have to just experience it for themselves and to see how beautiful the people in the culture is. Seriously. I mean, when I go home, it's like a weight is lifted off my shoulder the moment I walk out of the airplane. I'm like, ah.
Wow.
Yeah, I can take this off now.
Right. Just beautiful. Yeah.
And be free. That's how I feel, really.
Right. And some people have put in the chat, and yeah, definitely put your you can finish putting your stuff in the chat for your business and how they can get that. Jenny, you ladies inspire me every single day. You inspire us too, Jenny. Emily, community care and self-care go hand in hand. Love this. I think we lack this kind of community here. Yes, absolutely. And I'm trying to find ways to build it for my kids. Absolutely. And it's so funny because when I do visit Jenny, because you live in her neighborhood too, right? You guys are like a community there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah, well, next
there are some,
come over, you gotta come knock on my door.
Right.
Or the garage is usually open. You can just come on through.
Right. So I really love that, like that they do have a sense of community over there, and especially here in America. But in some neighborhoods they do. Unfortunately, I don't have that in my neighborhood, and I really do miss that. And so I'm like Emily, I'm on the search for community for my child so she can see how that is. I remember being a kid, being able to go outside and play freely with my cousins. You know, we had just a great time. So I really do miss that.
Demetrius said, I think we all need to go back one day and just stay. Demetrius, I agree with you. It's so hard for me to come back every single time. If when I go to Benin, I take my daughter with me, I can't say that I'm saying I might not come back.
Right.
She's the only reason why I keep coming back, because she's not always going with me.
Right.
But that day that she comes with me, I don't know, that might be the day.
Yes, we need to go. We need to go. You need to plan a tour. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to touch on before we leave tonight, because we do have a little time. Some people don't understand there is food insecurities here in America, because we think about, other countries, they have that, or poor countries have that. But here in America, and I have some stats, in 2020, an estimated 1 in 8 Americans were food insecure, equating to over 38 million Americans, including almost 12 million children. So I want you to share your thoughts on food insecurity. And for those who don't know what food insecurity is, it means, again, people not having access to food, and healthy food at that. So if you can just share that. And of course, it usually affects people, of certain classes, of certain races. So there's that disparities there and all that. So just share your thoughts about that.
Let's just speak the truth. And let's just speak the blatant truth. It absolutely does. It definitely was done on purpose. When I think a lot about, like, my daughter, for example, I remember bringing her to school one day when she was like, I want to say first grade. She was going to like an early program, and I walked in with her. And I don't know if y'all remember those round little peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that in like that purple and white bag. I was like, this is what they're feeding our children? Crazy. And then sometimes, depending on where you live, you want to go to like a farmer's market. You're not going to find that. You want to go to maybe even like, I don't want to say that, but Whole Foods. You want to go to a Whole Foods or like a Trader Joe's, and you can't find it, for example. You can only find some of the some stores or like restaurants, like your McDonald's, your Burger Kings, that are in your community. And there aren't any places strategically around you where you live that give you access to healthy foods. And so, like, what is the answer? There are some organizations that, like the Black Farmers Markets, the Black Farmer Market that hosts a lot of markets that, are trying to empower community for us to have access to great food. They do a great program with like the food and nutrition program that allows you to buy from farmers using an EBT card, which I think is great. Because sometimes people are embarrassed about that, and there's nothing wrong with it. Sometimes we all need a little bit, of help, but another answer is growing your own food. But like, not enough of us know how to do that, and enough understand that. So, maybe even providing education on how people can grow their own food in their own home could be a way for us to fight against that. But it is something that is absolutely prevalent. It's something that is absolutely happening right here, like in your backyard.
Right. Exactly. Because I work for a company that has a foundation, and that's when I really learned a lot about food insecurities, and how, again, it goes back to back in the day, like Adè said, it is on purpose. Redlining, where Black people can only live in certain areas. So it kind of starts all the way back there. Even with housing conditions, that caused a lot of sicknesses and issues with African Americans. But when we talk about food, and I think it was like not too long ago, this young man put this on social media, and he drove in a predominantly African American neighborhood where there were like fast foods, liquor stores, convenience stores, and the grocery stores like Food Lion. But then down the street, it was a predominantly white neighborhood, and there you saw your Whole Foods, all these nice restaurants. Everything was close by as well. You didn't see many liquor stores. So
Yeah.
we have to open our eyes to reality of there are disparities, and a lot of people want to act like that doesn't exist. It does. And now the good thing is they have the data now to show that, number one. And now they're doing more research to make, things more equitable. And that's not only just for food insecurity, it's also for healthcare, because with healthcare, social determinants of health is a big thing. How persons take care of their health has a lot to do with their environment, their social life, and things like that. So just think about it. If you're somebody with diabetes, but you live, in a low income neighborhood, you're not going to have the access to whole foods and the vegetables and stuff like that. So how are you going to eat well to control your diabetes? And that's harder for you to do. And then you have to think about people too who are low income, the money. So you have to decide, am I going to pay my rent or pay for these high expensive medications? So all that, or pay for buy food, all those things are put together. And so there are foundations, and like my company has one that do kind of help with those type of things. And like you were saying, you can use your food stamps to go to farmers market, so you can buy fresh fruits and vegetables. Also, convenience stores, some of them have partnered with certain foundations to offer, fresh veggies and fruits and stuff like that as well. So we have to keep our eyes open and be a community. And if you know someone in need, help them out, because there are a lot of people here in America that is suffering with food insecurity. And that they're also trying to do better too with the school systems, as you said, because some schools have better access to food again than others. And then also there are some communities too that are having their own, they have community gardens.
Yeah.
They then have access to that. So, it's passionate. As you saw, I got into it because it's passionate. I work in healthcare, and it's very passionate about me because of disparities and that it's still happening. But I'm glad conversations are happening more, because we're looking at population health. We're seeing the numbers, the data now, and they can't turn their heads anymore because it's there.
It's real, very real, and in your face.
Exactly. And now to kind of close out, I always ask them words of wisdom. So the first thing is, how do you balance being a mom and a business owner? And so can you give other moms or even the fathers out there some words of wisdom regarding how do you balance it?
Yeah. And in the spirit of transparency, I'm gonna let y'all know that I am working on that myself. And there's seasons. I'm working on that, but this is where I've landed. Because I tell myself I could always do more. And when you work for yourself, it's so hard, because it's easy to pick up the computer at 10 p.m. It's easy to pick up the computer when you wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and continue. It's easy to not set those boundaries for yourself because you're like, well, I'm thinking about it right now. Let me do it.
Right.
Or, a big thing to do is create structure for yourself. That's really important. I'm saying this because I know it is. I haven't gotten there completely yet. So I'm still being honest with y'all. So I don't have step by step for you. I'm just trying. I'm doing my best.
You're a work in progress. Okay, we got you.
Yes, I'm doing my best. Another thing that I'm starting to do is kind of like give myself, okay, at this time, I'm done. But to go back to what I was starting to say about seasons, I realize particularly us, like as mothers and women, we want to be everything to everybody in our life at the same time. And one realization I've come to is like, I can't be 100% like a present as a mother, 100% present in my business, 100% present in relationships. It's impossible. And then be 100% present for myself. It's impossible. So I'm starting to ask myself questions about what season I think I'm in. Is it a season to be really focused with work and rely on like my community to help me in some of the places that I can't fill right now? Or is it the season where I'm all about 100% focused on my daughter and my business can sit to the side for a moment? Or is it like some of these are the types of questions I'm asking myself. Is figuring out the season that I'm in and focusing on that season, because I can't be everything.
Right. That's true. That's a good way to look at it. Yes.
And it's hard because then in all of that, I forgot like myself.
Right.
So
you got to take care of yourself, because you can't take care of everybody else if you don't take care of yourself first.
Yeah, it's important to recognize that.
Right. And then the last thing is, but before I say that, I'm laughing because Demetrius says EBT stands for Eat Better Today.
You know what, Demetrius, why don't we start a program like that? Eat Better Today.
Right.
And we're going to teach people how to plant food.
Right, exactly. So what is your best advice to someone who may feel they don't belong or are struggling to find their identity?
Oh, that's such a good question, because I have a lot of friends who are African American. And when I'm just tying it back to be the wall between us here for a second. A lot of times I hear, again, I understand my privilege in saying I come from Benin, I come from this particular tribe, and I can actually literally physically go and be there. That's a huge privilege. So once I recognize it and I acknowledge that. And a lot of times when I talk to some of my African American friends, I'm like, you can just go back. And they're like, well, how do I start? It's so overwhelming. I'm like, okay, that's fair. That's fair. So for people who are like struggling with identity and who you are, I think more than anything, you need to spend time with yourself.
Right.
What that might look like for you, whether you need to go away somewhere, whether you need to like sit in your room and meditate, you need to spend time with yourself to understand yourself being like where you are right now today. And then from there, you can like take the steps and you can like make decisions from a much better place about which ways to go. For me, when I was like, sometimes I don't, although I say I resonate with the communities I grew up with, it doesn't that when I go into those communities, they're like, oh, hey, Adè, the African, or hey, Adè, the African American. Okay, yeah, you definitely Puerto Rican. It doesn't mean that it's welcomed with open arms, because I go home and they call me white because I'm not, I guess I'm not that dark. and so, or they'll be like, or they'll look at me and say, there's like, I can't really tell. Or just the other day, someone was like, you look mixed. And I'm like, what? I'm African. So I'm not saying that it's always you're going to be accepted everywhere that you go, but before you can confidently go into any of those places, you need to be confident in yourself and in your own identity. And in doing that, you need to spend that time with yourself to understand who you are, what you like, what you don't like, what affects you, how it affects you, and how you respond to all these things. Because there will be a lot of rejection in life, for sure. But to cope with that and to work through it, you have to be able to know how to manage yourself and your own emotions. So I think more than anything, it's introspection.
I agree. So this is key. Right.
Because
you will always be searching for that if you don't know who you are on the inside and accept yourself. You're always going to be looking for that validation from other people, and you may never get that.
Yeah.
So that's I love that. That was really good.
It don't hurt me anymore when I go home and they call me, because growing up, my father was white and Black and African. And growing up, we would walk to school and they would sing a song for us in like our native language and call us white. At that point, I didn't like it. It wasn't resonating with me. And then I came here to America, and I remember in 7th grade, Valentine's Day, this kid Kevin called me the N-word in the lunch line, and that also did not resonate with me until other people made a big deal about it.
Right.
And then I understood what that word meant. And so there are spaces I go into where I'm not enough of one thing for other people. Girl, I stand there and I'm like, yes, I am.
Absolutely. Yes, you are. That was so good. That was so deep, because you're right. I mean, some people can view you one way, some people can view you another way. Like you said, in your culture, I mean, I'm looking at you from American eyes saying that, hey, you look Black. But you said in your country, they were saying you were white. I'm like, how? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So that's interesting. But like you said, you have to know that you are enough and that you have every right to be in any room that you walk in. And so I love that. And so now we come to the close of this. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Adè. I'm sorry.
Y'all hearing what's happening in these New York streets?
Oh yeah, she's in New York, so that's why you hear all the background noise.
They have a soundtrack playing at all times.
Exactly. It is the city that never sleeps, for real.
Yes.
So now we're going to do our giveaways, and so that means you had to be paying attention or be on the live I would hope so, most of the time. And thank again to all of those who've been on here all this time with us and the comments. We do appreciate it. And so we're going to ask we're going to have 2 giveaways. So we're going to ask a question. Whoever responds to it first in the chat with the correct spelling, no abbreviations, of course, it has to be the correct answer as well, will be the winner. And so the giveaways is some Adè's spices. Yay. And so she's going to, I think I'm going to do the first question, Adè.
Okay.
You can do the next one. So what is the name of the country she's from?
Oh, that's an easy one.
Yeah, that one's easy. So whoever gets that right, I gave you an easy one. My daughter's over here raising her hand. No. And I forgot we have live in studio audiences for both places.
Yes, we have friends over here hanging out.
So let's see who responds first. Gisetta is the first one. She has it right. And luckily Gisetta lives locally, so and she's my sister, so you can give it to me. Nice. So we can, all right. So what's your question, Adè?
Oh, I'm gonna give y'all a really hard one.
Oh.
It's hard. And you know what, if it's too hard, don't worry. We'll give you a hint. You can go to my website, that will help you. What was it that I said is the statement that's at the root of my entire business? My entire business model is something that we live by in my home country and in my culture.
Oh, are they gonna know how to spell that one though? Am I thinking the right one?
Yeah, I think you are thinking the right one, but I think we can give some leeway. But if you're having a hard time with the spelling, go to my website and it will tell you. You'll see it.
Somebody said food. No, it was a statement she made. All right, come on. This one's a good one. They gotta do research.
It was a hard one.
Ms. Philbott said community. No, it's a hard one.
You're so close. I did put my website in the comments. So if you click on that, you'll see it on my website.
Somebody said Bousin, Bousin.
I'll give you a hint so you can find it easily on my website.
I don't see your website though on here. Did you put it in the live chat?
Yeah, on Facebook.
Oh, I don't see it.
It's right. And Jenny also put it up there.
Okay, perfect.
It's in the comment I made and a comment that Jenny made.
She said Bousin cruising.
Oh, okay. I think they're trying to say so close. Y'all click on the link to my website. I'm gonna put it in here again. It means, I'll give you guys a hint. It means come share a meal with me.
All right. So she gave you what it meant. Come share a meal with me. We need the word.
Ooh, Iris, you're close. You're close, but no cigar.
And again, go to the website. So you will see it. This one was a good one. I like that. I can do some research. See, I gave y'all one thing.
Yes, Emily, you got it.
Yes. Woohoo. So what me don't know. Oh, did I do it right? I said it right.
You got it.
Yeah, so everybody should know that.
No, I'm sorry. You were so close. You gave the description. but not the verbiage in the fall language, but you were so close.
And I also know Emily, so we can save on shipping on her too. So I'll give it to her. I'll give it to you the next board meeting, Emily. So I just want to thank everyone again for joining us tonight. And Adè, I want to say that you are a
thank
you have sacrificed for your child. You have healed from your past hurts. You evolving into what God wants you to be. You have sat here today, revealed your truth, and you out here obtaining your goals and happiness. You are doing so many great things, and I'm just looking forward to your food truck, attending some of your dinners. If you live in the Raleigh-Durham area, please, please, please support her. I'm so excited about what you have in store in your next moves. And just thank you again for taking out the time to be my S.H.E.R.O for this month. And you're amazing. And so just keep doing what you're doing. Do you have any last comments you want to give to the people?
Yes, thank you all so much for being here and sharing this moment with me. And thank you to you for having me. It means a lot. And this was such a wonderful conversation. And I'm going to tell you guys, yes, we have a food truck coming, so we're definitely going to be showing you guys what Beninese food and cuisine is all about. And then we have a dinner. It's a fundraising dinner so that we can help give food to everyone. Everyone should have access to food. And that's happening October 27th. So mark your calendars for that. And if you want to know more information about that, you actually have to go to Instagram for that information. But please support, because feeding everyone is like what I'm passionate about.
Absolutely. And make sure you put your Instagram in the chat as well, so they'll know to head over there. And also for those of you who this is your first time on S.H.E.R.O Spotlight, make sure you tune into the next ones, and definitely make sure you like and share my page so that you can be able to keep up with what's going on. So again, thank you so much, Adè. Thank you, everyone. I hope you all have a great night.
Thank you, guys.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.